Hello, and welcome to a special edition of Up Close on METV. I'm Charles Clapsaddle, Station Manager for Manatee Educational Television. The world we live in is becoming more interconnected every year. Both the United States and Europe have felt the effects of the financial dilemma brought on by the worldwide banking crisis and its impact on people's daily lives and their future lives. American educators are trying to prepare our students to compete for jobs in a worldwide market. Wakeland Elementary, Johnson Middle School, and Southeast High School are schools right here in Manatee County that have the International Baccalaureate Program, the IB program. And, as the name implies, IB puts learning in an international context, helping children build a sense of identity and cultural awareness, fostering recognition of universal human values, and helping students discover the enjoyment of learning and helping them apply those skills across a broad range of areas. Joining us today are three members of a group of 30 people from Wakeland and Johnson going to Guatemala this March as part of a sister schools project that began in the fall of 2007. Let me introduce our panel today. First of all, we had Eddie Robinette. Eddie, thank you so much for putting together this panel and joining us here today.
Thank you. We appreciate this very much.
And also we have Andrea Gonzalez, who's a Spanish teacher at Wakeland. And Andrea, how long have you been a Spanish teacher at Wakeland?
I have been there for 6 years.
Oh, wonderful. And finally, we have Lisa Bonarosa, who has a fifth grader and a child in kindergarten.
That's right.
And they're both involved in the IB program.
Yes, they are.
And that's got to be a pretty exciting and pretty strenuous program, IB. Is that correct?
It is, but I think that the principles of the program and the ways in which teachers engage the students, especially at Wakeland, because that's where my kids are, that's what I could speak to, it's a marvelous way of learning, and it connects them to not just our local community, but a bigger world community as well. And my younger daughter is from Guatemala, so having our kind of international family, it's kind of nice to be able to attend a school like that.
It's really, so you have a worldwide family.
We do.
That's fantastic. Tell us, and I'm going to open this up for all of you, what are some of the benefits of an IB program? I mean, as people say, when you go to school, there are advanced placement classes, and there's, strenuous learning across the board, but what are the advantages of, and why is an IB program so significant? Eddie?
Well, one thing, for IB to be successful, the parents have to participate. Every good school has good teachers, a good administration, and good parents. But in IB, you have to have good parents for it to be effective. So to me, that was a real selling point. The other thing is I've traveled a bit, and as you go across the world, you realize that as different as we are in many ways, we are so much alike in more ways than we are different. And I have two grandchildren who are in school here. I have two children who went to Southeast, and I have two grandchildren now who are in Wakeland. And I just, after looking at all of the programs, private and public in the county, I thought this was the best program by far.
Well, that's very exciting. I want to come back to a couple of those thoughts. Now, Andrea, as a teacher, as a Spanish teacher, what are some of the rigors that you bring into an IB program that specifically highlights young people?
Well, to be in Wakeland is, when we start the Spanish in Wakeland, it was a big challenge for me for the Spanish program, because I see there is a great opportunity for the kids, our Wakeland kids, to exposure them to different culture and be open-minded. So we just not go with the state standard. We need to include cultural thing because the kids need to be aware of what happened out of the United States. So, and then when we have that opportunity, so the kids are more like, show more caring for other people. They know that many people around the world have many needs, so they can help in different ways.
Well, one of the main things that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the IB program kind of emphasizes is about service to the school, service to the community, service to the country, and service to anyone in the world. So, and that's kind of in keeping in the theme of what we want to talk about later about the sister school that you're working with. Have you seen some of those connections and some of the things that your children have brought home?
I have, and it's a wonderful. As a parent, you struggle to find ways to, for lack of a better word, indoctrinate that kind of ideal into your kid. And the best way of doing that, in my opinion, is always to model it for your kids. So you're right in there doing it with them. But when it comes from somewhere else, it's not just your home. It's kind of reinforced every day at school, from local things to global things to national projects that they've got going on at the school. They get excited, and it sort of comes from them. So oftentimes those ideas are brought to our dinner table. Hey, Mom, we're doing this at school. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Or hey, do we have any extra books lying around? We could give them to kids that need them who don't have books in Manatee County. So it's sort of nice that it comes from others than just yourself, because sometimes kids are kind of reticent to listen to their parents, but when they're hearing about it at school every day in big ways and in small ways, it sort of takes on a life of its own.
And one of the things that I would see, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, I mean, you're creating a kind of this culture of understanding, especially going from Wakeland, from an elementary, into a middle school, into a high school, with the same kind of emphasis on learning at the IB level. And I think that's kind of you're creating a generation of people, of young people, who are very understanding and have a greater, perhaps, global outlook. Eddie, what do you see from your grandkids?
Well, and the connection that these children make now outside of Bradenton and outside of Manatee County gives them an even stronger sense of identity to the place where they are, and even a stronger sense of wanting to serve in their communities. I was just thinking as you were talking how everything comes together here. At the port, we are one of the few counties in Florida that has its own port. Panama Canal widening is about to be finished. There'll be more trade up and down the Americas. There's just so many things that are coming together here that the IB program fits so perfectly with. It would be wonderful if you could take the IB concepts and take it from Wakeland all the way through State College, for example. I mean, what's to keep us from having subjects that actually do help children develop into international leaders? That would help them to develop into international attorneys, international accountants. And they have a natural connection right through the trade that we have right here in Manatee County.
Now, the IB program is, I mean, throughout the whole curriculum. I mean, they kind of marry the IB scope of things with mathematics and science and history and all of those things. Is that correct?
I think the big thing that I took away from it when I first had my kids enrolled is that there's sort of an interdisciplinary approach. So everything sort of fits together. You're not learning one
isolated
subject.
Subjects.
You're not learning about one subject here and then going over here and learning about a different subject. That they're all sort of intertwined. And so when you think about it, it's sort of a perfect way to learn. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because, every day, every period of the day reinforces what you learned in the morning versus in the afternoon. And from what I understand, any IB school around the world is basically doing the same type, there may be some small tweaking that happens at a local level, but basically you could walk into an IB school in a different country and hear and see the same types of things that are happening in Manatee County.
And that's a great point. Andrea?
Yes, Alisa touched something that we work on that in the school, like even Spanish, all the subjects, PE, music, art, all are connected to IB. So just an example in Spanish, if they are learning, the kids are learning in second grade, for example, children's rights. So then we are teaching Spanish professions in that time. Then we say, okay, listen, in a Spanish-speaking country, most of the Spanish-speaking countries, children have to work hard So they don't know they have the right to go to school. Why? Because they don't have, parents, they don't have money to support them to go to school. So the kids, so here in Wakeland, the kids know that in other countries,
the world is quite different.
Yeah, that's right, it's so different. So all the units are connected to IB. So,
and I think that's a great point. And to piggyback on what Eddie was mentioning about, the world is changing, the world is expanding. The Hispanic population continues to grow and continue to develop throughout the United States.
Correct.
So Spanish as a language is very important. But one of the things I see IB programs providing a step to is a greater understanding of global issues, how things happen in other parts of the world, like you were mentioning, Andrea. Which brings me to the one thing that you as parents and as educators have been working on, is working with a school in Guatemala, a sister school, of which you've dedicated a great deal of time and effort and energy and money towards to help create this kind of sense of bonding. Eddie, you want to tell me a little bit about the kind of the evolution of how that grew and a little bit about where the project is?
It started in 2007, and it started with just Wakeland and a school in the Central Highlands of Guatemala, Escuela de Chiquique. Today, Wakeland still has their sister school, but so does Johnson Middle. Johnson has roughly the equivalent of a middle school, their sister school, in a little town named Chamelco that is not too far distant from Chiquique. The program began just through when I saw how much you could do with just a little bit in a very poor part of the world. And then the parents and the teachers and the principals. Chuck Bradley was the principal at Wakeland at the time. Just really saw what it did. What it did was it gave IB a tactile feeling. It made it something real. Instead of just being a concept, here's something it actually is.
Where you can make a difference.
Yes, and so they've taken it and made it much, much bigger than anything I had ever envisioned. And again, I can't say enough about parents who, we've had good administrators in both these schools, we have good teachers, but the parents are the ones who actually make this work. And the PTOs, I don't know how they do everything they do. Most of these folks have full-time jobs, and this is a full-time job on top of that. Then they're raising a family. Right. So it's just an amazing job that they do. It's very exciting for me to see.
So at least I think they're talking about you and some of the things that you've done. But so let me, for our audience and for the clarity of it, Wakeland and Johnson have gotten involved and set up kind of a partnership with these schools. And are these remote areas in Guatemala, very remote? So kind of tell us a little bit about the geography of these places.
It is. The school, the sister school for Wakeland is on top of, if you're a flatlander like me, it is a mountain. I guess for hill folk it would be like just a big hill, but it's a very high place and you walk it, you don't drive it. The first time I saw it, these children were obviously, some of them were hungry, tattered clothing, and now over the years it's a total difference. They'll tell you now when we go, yes, there's no indoor bathrooms, that kind of thing, but the children look much healthier. There's a brighter feel to the whole place. And it's on the one hand, it's very remote. On the other hand, civilization is kind of just rushing at them. Our great hope is that they can get enough education to be able to deal with what's coming towards them so fast. Their principal, the very first thing he told me was, he didn't ask for anything. He said, what my children need is a connection with the outside world. They have no TV, they have no radios. You can't get the internet up there. They obviously don't have internet. And he said they need that, and they need something to look forward to in the future. And he said, if you can do that, it will make a big difference here. And these folks have done that.
So all of you have been to these facilities. Lisa, when was the first time? And Andrea, how many times have each one of you been to these locations?
Well, I've been to Guatemala probably 15 times, but to our school 4, I think, 4 times.
Yeah.
What about you, Andrea?
I have gone about twice, 2 times there.
And each time that you go, you bring a variety of different materials and outreach. Now, I think, Eddie, you've shared with me that you've tried to do things on little scale to be able to provide like enclosed facilities. I think there was a group of parents that you told me about that helped build a facility down there.
The PTO, the Wakeland PTO, raised the money to buy the materials. And the people on top of the mountain built it themselves. They cleared it by hand, they leveled it by hand, they laid the concrete. And they'll tell you, there's no more water on this thing when it rains than there is on a tennis court in town here.
That's fantastic.
So it's not, the one thing we don't want to do, this is not charity. This is a partnership. And we're getting as much from them. I think we're probably getting more from this relationship than they are.
And I would think, so when you come back, Andrea, for example, to your class, and you can share some of the experiences with your students, what are some of the questions your students ask you about this school?
Well, they ask me about if the kids, how they go to school every day, because they don't have like, they don't think about, they don't have cars or bicycle. Then I explain to them that they need to, like walk, and the road is not paved. So there is a, like dirt road. And also they need to carry all the thing on the back. And they don't have bathroom, like yes, no. Then they are like a little surprised, but then they feel like, oh, we need to help that children. We need to help because they are children like us. Yes, you're right. And now that you mentioned that the testimony that I bring to my kids, yesterday I was talking to 2 kids that are going to Guatemala. They are in 3rd grade, and I say, hey, I say, you that you are going to Guatemala with me and all the grupo, you are going to take the notebook because you need to write down, take note of everything that's happening. In Guatemala with the kids in our sister's school, and then you are going to share with us, with the kids, and then I see, and then they say, oh yes, my mom told me to have that. Okay, so, and everybody's excited because everybody wants to go there. He said, yes, we need to
and
go.
participate.
Yes,
and participate.
Right. Yeah, because if we go, we give a little like hope to them, and they are so happy to see us, and also because they know that there is a school here in Florida, Manatee County, that is helping, like, partnership with them, that they care about our kids in Guatemala.
And what a tremendous learning opportunity, for you to come back and share that experience with, words and images of what that school is accomplishing. And I think it's a remarkable thing. Now, Lisa, when you come back and you're talking to your children and your neighbors and, people in the PTO, what are some of those essential things that you want them to know about this mission? Well,
I have taken my 11-year-old with me a few times, which is it's a really remarkable thing, because I think that you can see it in a book or you could watch a movie about it, but when you actually go there, it's an experience that you really you can't get in another way. So actually, a funny story, when we were walking up the hill for the first time, my daughter is a little bit dramatic, and we were walking up the hill, and she was complaining, and it was so steep, and how is she going to make it up to the top? And I said, listen, if you're going to say something negative, you have to say something positive also. And she said, I'm glad my mom and dad drive me to school every day.
And sometimes, kids take that for granted. They do. I mean, you have to.
When she came back, she looked in her room and said, look at all these school supplies I have. Those kids have nothing. I have so many pencils, so many markers, so many notebooks, and those kids have nothing. And yet they go to school every day, and they're so happy to be there. So that's something that I think is worth the price of admission, is that, she now thinks, she was selling things from Guatemala to raise money for our library down there. She now thinks of ways that she can participate to raise money, to get involved in that way. So I think what people always say to me is, oh, it's such a great thing that you do, but I don't really look at it that way. I think, like Eddie mentioned, I think we get out of it as much as they do.
I mean, it sounds like a remarkable thing. But I want to go take this a step further because, you know, I'm glad that you mentioned the library, which is an important part of any school or any community. And you were intimately involved in making that happen. Is that correct, Daddy?
Yes, but here's what we did. We asked them what they needed, and they told me, they said, you know, as many years we've been here, no one has ever asked us what we needed. And so what we've tried to do is we don't tell them, here's what you need to do. We ask them what you need, and then we help them accomplish. Now obviously we have some say-so, some input into it, but it really is, a relationship. It's not us dictating.
It's a partnership.
Yes,
it's a partnership
exactly.
between the two of you, which leads me to something I want each one of us to be able to talk about, and that's specifically, where do we go from here? Now, obviously, as parents and as teachers and individuals that are concerned and have an outreach, that's a great thing, and you know, there's time and effort and money involved in that. But I would suggest to you that perhaps, you know, there's other organizations or families or parents that might want to become involved in these efforts. And how do they do that? And what is the way that somebody can get involved with what you're doing?
Well, one easy way is to use Facebook and go to the Wakeland Elementary page on Facebook. And from there you can go to the sister school website. Now the website is escuelashermanas.org. That's Spanish for sister schools, because sister schools had been copyrighted, so we couldn't use that.
Escuela Hermanas,
Yes.
and that's and we have a Spanish teacher here who can.
And she doesn't make fun of my poor Spanish, so she's my.
No, it's not right. He speaks Spanish, so you know.
Well, and so they go to the website Escuelas Hermanas, and we have that up on the screen for people to write down. And what can they do? What would you encourage perhaps another family to do? Lisa?
Well, we just. This trip that we've got coming up in March, I think we're taking probably 2.5 times more people than we ever have taken before. So I had a couple of families call, and you know, if you haven't been to a third world country, it can be the process or the thought of going can be a little daunting. So I talk to families and I tell them what to expect, what they're going to experience. And then I tell them, listen, this is the best thing you can do for your children. It's the best money you could ever spend. If you are a family that attends an IB school, you know, there is no better experience than to go and do this with your kid on so many levels. And so I would tell a family to come with us. And I tell you, on one trip, you'll be hooked. You will be hooked.
I can imagine that an individual going up to the top of this mountain, and there's probably, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 or more children of all different ages who are so glad to see you and so glad that you're bringing some educational impact to them. I imagine they have millions of questions for you, millions of questions. But Eddie, talk to me a little bit about, you know, about your funding and how organizations perhaps can perhaps work with you.
Well, when it started, it was family and friends donating money. Now we have a foundation in town that wishes to remain anonymous. It's been this very good to us, and we've had help from. I have friends in the Palmetto Rotary who have a project in Guatemala also, and they have helped me get goods down there and helped me in other ways. I would encourage anyone to work through the schools. The PTOs, both schools, are 501c3s, so any money that goes to them is tax deductible. That's what I would. That was what I would suggest. I'll be honest with you, I have taken goods down there. And there's some people who that's what they want to do, and some people that's all they can do, and so we make the effort. But it makes so much difference if you actually give money and the money is spent in that community, because then you get a multiplier effect that affects
Exactly,
everybody.
and that's what I think, you know, a lot of organizations try to do, is that why goods are important, or taking books or supplies, is that when you're in country, you can use dollars to actually do what Eddie said, is to multiply the effect of what you can provide.
What I would like is, and I would like to have an organization to take us under their wing, not to do all of our fundraising, but just for us to be identified with a Rotary or a Lions Club, with someone like that. The Rotaries have been a natural ally, because the Rotary Creed so mirrors what we do. But we're looking for someone
That kind
like
of
that.
that
Yes.
kind of organization.
Exactly.
I mean, the work that you've done, and obviously going there for this period of time, has been very essential, and it really is in keeping with that IB mission, and that is to become global in scope and for service to community, country, and the world. Now, we're running out of time here a little bit, and I want to go around the table. Andrea, I want to start with you. What do you want people to know, not only about the IB program, but also your ongoing service that you're doing in Guatemala?
Okay, I want that everybody knows that here in Manatee County, you know, there is a school, Wakeland Elementary, that is working hard to help, you know, other children in Guatemala, and also kids are caring for all the situation that the kids, you know, are in this time in Guatemala, and that's why it's a way that the kids practice the Spanish, because you know, kids practice Spanish when they when we do video conference with Guatemala kids there, you know, and also when they write letters. So it's a good way that kids here at IB and Wakeland Elementary are in constant touch with others from different countries.
That's excellent. Lisa, you're a parent, you're an involved citizen, you're doing things with this school for many years now. What do you want the community to know?
Well, I think that oftentimes we hear of local children and teens that aren't making a difference in the world and are doing bad things, and we've got, you know, a whole bunch of schools right here in Manatee County with kids that are growing up to be globally minded, oriented to giving back to a larger community in the world, and I'm just thrilled and proud of the fact that I can get involved with it.
And that's a good thing. And as a parent, you've got to be so proud of your own kids becoming involved in this mission.
I am, very much.
Eddie, last word. You've been involved. You've been like the backbone of this for a few years now. What's next steps? Where does this go from here?
Here's what I want to see happen. This year, for the first time, we have a child who has gone from Chiquik to New Fed, which is the middle school, and now has entered the next level. What I want to have happen is to have 2 of those children to go all the way through university and come back to their village. And sometime in the future to have one of those children be working in international trade with one of our children.
That's a great vision, and I think if you can provide that to all of those children, it'd be a wonderful opportunity for that entire community. Well, I want to thank all of you, Lisa, Andrea, and Eddie. Thank you so much for joining us, and I would welcome you back, perhaps at another opportunity, so we can talk a little bit more about this, or perhaps talk about some of the other things that the school is doing and what your mission is going to be. And we welcome that opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, many people in Manatee County have been adversely impacted by the last few years and the financial crisis affecting the world. The Sister Schools program reaches out to our neighbors in Guatemala and those children that benefit greatly from the relationship. These students will use acquired skills to help position themselves for high-paying, well-respected careers that will come from international trade. And our position is one of the few counties in Florida with a seaport of our own. I want to thank our guests for joining us, and thank you for joining us on this special edition of Up Close on METV.